Hello, my name's Mackenzie, and we're going to be Zentangling today here at the HIR Wellness Institute. Alright, so I'm going to sit you guys down. We have a frequent flyer with us today. This is my cat Moki. He is feeling definitely involved today, so I'm very sure we will see him again. Alright, so I'm going to start with a piece of paper. So we've got our piece of paper. I'm gonna grab a pencil, an eraser, and a straight edge. I always like using rulers, but I don't think we're gonna be using a ruler type thing today. Maybe we will, but I really don't feel the need for rulers today. So Zentangle is a lot about self-care in terms of, paying attention and to how you feel and how everything's going for you in terms of your tools, your environment, the types of designs you want to do, even the paper and mediums that you choose to use. And it's really important to pay attention to them, especially as you're starting to Zentangle, just so that you know whether or not you're getting the most out of this based off of what you're feeling. So today I've got a pencil, I've got a piece of paper, and I've got an eraser. And my big thing for today is I want to color. So I'm going to choose to do a Zentangle that requires me to use a lot of ink. And I think I'll start that off by taking a shape. So I've got an eraser here, but it's got roundness to it. So I'm choosing to grab a square shape, but you could always do any kind of round shape. And I'm just going to trace that with my pencil. So that is going to create a little section. Next, I'm going to put the shape down again. I'm choosing to intersect the two shapes, and I'm going to trace it. Oops. It's easier if you don't choose a plastic wrapped object like I did. But all I'm doing here is I'm just tracing my shape. And I'm not being too precise about it. There are lots of lines that aren't touching, and that's okay. Now, as I said earlier, you can use any shape you like. So let me know if you get the chance what shape you decided to use, because I just grabbed my eraser. But maybe you've got a prayer stone lying around, or a glass of water that you're drinking from. Maybe you picked up your cat and decided to trace them, in which case I wish you great luck. And so all I'm doing here is I'm just filling up my paper with shapes, and you don't have to fill it all the way up. But I wanted a lot of different areas to be able to draw in. So I'm just going through and tracing my shape. One important thing to remember though is when you're doing Zentangle, if you decide to go this route, it really is easier to put as many of these shapes on here as you'd like to start with. Just so when you get to the end or something like that, you're not trying to put shapes in, or you're trying to Zentangle or put shapes into areas you've already Zentangled over. So I try and get all of the shapes I want to do right out of the bat. You can always go in there with your pencil, finish up any lines you want. These are really rough, even for me. I don't draw very precisely a lot of the time. So these are really rough shapes. Right, so I've got lots of nice rough shapes around here. My goal today is to be able to do some coloring. So I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to do what's called inking, which means that I'm just going to let things be colored in by my pen. So all I have to do is choose designs. I think to start with, I'm going to do a checkerboard design. So I'm going to pick a shape, and I want lots of checkerboards, so I'm going to pick this one. There's lots of empty space here. So I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'm going to draw some roughly parallel lines. So I'm starting by being parallel to my existing line. If you used a square shape, then this should work for you. If you used a circular shape, I would definitely recommend just starting by drawing a line down the middle. Then you can use that to create your parallels. So there's my first line. And I'm not measuring these, so I'm just going to go in and draw lines that I think are about evenly spaced to create my parallels. So there's my first set of parallels, and now I'm going to go in at the opposite angle. Again, just drawing parallel lines to create that grid pattern. I'm not measuring anything today. Oh, thank you for the hearts. One more. Nice. So I'm taking my black pen. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to focus on a square, right? You can start at the edge or you can start in the middle. Doesn't really matter. It's just important to be consistent, and I definitely recommend that wherever you start, you just build out in one direction. So I'm going to start straight in the middle, and I'm going to outline my square, and this is where the coloring part comes in. I'm just going to let that fill with ink. This is where those tools become important, because this tool that I'm using is a water-based pen, so wherever I touch it loves leaving little droplets of ink. But a lot of the times you'll see in a lot of my recent Zentangles I used alcohol-based pens, and they dry super quickly, so it's hard to get kind of this pool of ink going. If I were to swipe my finger right now, even on either of these, you'd leave a whole smear of ink behind. This is definitely great for when you want to be, doing this coloring inking thing that I'm doing. But when you want really fine lines packed together, it's really easy to mess up. So it's just a choice of what tools you want for the project. And again, that depends on, what kind of things you want to think about. If you want to think about working on your piece from one edge to the other, maybe go with a water-based pen, because it'll make you more mindful about where you put your hands. Or if you just want to randomly place about and fill things in, then go ahead and try an alcohol pen, just because you won't have to worry so much about smudging. So here I put in, I lined the wrong square. Good thing I looked at it. Luckily, all the other ones that are going to touch that one are going to be dark. Okay. So this is my first line. I went every other square is black to create my checkerboard. Now I'm going to move to the left. I'm going to go up one square and start filling in. And this is what creates that checkerboard pattern that we first start seeing. And there I just kind of went around the corner. I drew in the corner in this white box, but that's okay. There are no mistakes in Zentangling, because we're just being Zen. Oh, hi Moki. He's trying to be sneaky. You guys can't see him, but he's trying to like crawl in here. He wants a piece of the drawing action. Oh, oh. Come here, sweetie. Okay. Back to work. And that is a cat having fun. He scared himself, I think. Alright. So I'm just keeping on. Some of the fun things that you can do when you're coloring in these sections, if you don't feel like this is very satisfying for you when you're drawing, one of the fun things that you can do to help make things kind of go by quicker is to kind of give yourself some markers or goals. So you can divide your shape up into sections and then color in those sections. You know, either one after the other, or you can skip around and finish them up. That can be pretty fun. One of my favorite ways of doing sections, though, is to outline the box and then to create these squiggles going up and down, because they hold a little bit more of the ink around, so I feel like it's easier to just kind of go and fill them in. Now, this is a really fun way to do some basic art when you're running around too. these days I know a lot of us aren't sitting around in waiting rooms or in conferences and things, but even when you're stuck in a meeting, you can still pull out a simple sheet of paper or an extra bill or, some scraps that you have lying around. Grab a pen and just start doodling. And this is a really great way of doing that. So Zentangle is a really fun tool. And when you have a controlled environment, like say you're deciding to Zentangle for an hour or two in the evening, you can choose some other things to help you out with. Like I have a drink with me. I've got some water and I'm playing some music, and I chose to sit in a room that has a lot of natural light, sitting in a really comfortable chair, smelling my candle burning. And all of this, helps create an environment for me to really get the most out of a meditative Zentangle session. Just sitting around, drawing about. I'm just taking the cap off my pen because this little pocket thing irritates my fingers when I have it on for too long. Because I rotate the pen a little bit when I draw, so it brushes up against my fingers and gets really annoying. So there's that one. And now I'm gonna flip to the other side. Let's see here. I'm thinking I would like to draw some circles. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start in this section here. And I'm going to draw circles with the intention of filling in the area outside them. So when I'm drawing my circles, what I'm looking for is to get a very even inside, but I won't mind as much if like I end up having tails on the outside, right? And I don't want my circles to touch, but that won't be hard because they'll have the black ring of the circle itself to separate them. I also don't want any circles that fall off the section, so like no half circles at the edges. And these rules will be what I use to guide how my pattern looks as I go through. And for this one, I'm going to loosen up my hand a bit. It's been a while since I did this kind of detail work. So when I'm going through, it's really good to have kind of a light hand if you're using a water-based pen like I am, because that lets more of the ink flow out, and it'll still be wet when you go back and start to fill in the outside sections. So it'll be a bit easier to color. I'm going to try and leave in some larger sections here. I usually end up having to put in some just because of messing up or something and having to make a circle a little bit smaller, or even fill it in altogether. So just spacing them out a bit. Alright, I'm going to go through, start in one corner, I'm going to circle my circles, and just kind of go through and let my pen flood the area a bit. Thank you for those hearts. So this is definitely one of those areas where you can start sectioning it up, just so that it gets a little bit easier on the mind to fill up this space. Grids don't really work though, just because they're circles. So draw little alien shapes. Again, I'm focused on keeping those circle lines pretty clean. Alright, so that finishes up that section. And I think next up I'm gonna just draw some filled in circles. So I'm gonna go just right next door here, and I'm gonna draw a circle. It's gonna be a pretty sizable circle. And I'm just filling it in as I go along. I like creating just little slivers of it at a time to try and keep it as even as possible. And then from there, I'm going to draw a slightly smaller circle, going in one direction here. I'm going to draw a circle the same size on the other side. And again, over here. Oops. Oh, I guess that one's touching. But I'm going to try and make sure that they don't. And I'll switch to do the in-betweens. I'm going to try and make those as large as I can without them touching. Basically, I'm going to create a starburst pattern of circles. From there, I'm going to go out, again creating a slightly smaller circle. This one, I guess I'm going to have some partial circles on. That's okay. Alright, so from here, again, I'm just going to create some more small circles. And that creates my starburst pattern. So I'm going to go to the other side of this domino piece over here. Again, I'm going to create some circles, but this time they're just going to be some random circles, very much like this one. Different sizes, but all whole. Alright, so now I've got a lot of different kinds of circles. I'm going to fill in this last little space here. So I'll tip my camera forward just a little bit. Excuse me. Alright, so for this last little section here, I'm going to do little itty bitty tiny dots. So I'm just basically poking my paper with a pen. I thought it would look more elegant. I wanted it to be like star-shaped pattern, but it's okay. Because we're just flowing. Good. So there's that section. So we basically have a whole domino shape covered with dots. I'm very happy with it. Alright, I think I will do one more section. I'm going to keep with our coloring theme. I'm going to pop over here and I'm going to do some colored in lines. So I'm going to take my pencil to start with, and I'm just going to draw some pencil lines. I'm actually going to try and make it a little bit quicker, so. These will be my guides. So I'm going to take my pen here. Draw up one line, down the other. And then I'm just going to fill that in. Again, I'm going to use that trick where I kind of filled in with a different pattern. And that helps create little benchmarks for me to get through this. Because it's really not that large a space, but it feels so big when you're trying to color it in like this because it's using so much ink. So it feels like a really slow process. When you color in those spaces, it helps speed it up. Make it more satisfying to work through. Alright, so that's it for that design, and I think I'm going to stop there for the day. So this is my finished Zentangle for the day, and I want to say thank you for joining me. My name is Mackenzie, and this has been Zentangle with the HIR Wellness Institute. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you again next weekend.